How's everybody doing? Hope you're having a wonderful week. We hope to have a wonderful weekend watching college football and hopefully watching some bets hit, but we're not making any promises. We're not making any promises, but we have that potential fade god potential for you. So just tune in because picks are picks nonetheless. But all right, Con, week 9, previewing that slate. Let's just now lead in, as always, we're going to do on this Friday episode, your questions.
All right, my first Connor's question of the week. I think this is a little bit interesting. Is there are currently, what is it, 7 or 8 undefeated teams in all of Division
Yeah,
One?
if that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Regardless of the number, there are only a handful
hmm
left. And so my question to you was, of all those teams, who has the greatest possibility to retain that zero and go undefeated throughout the regular season?
Sure. So I guess I start with, within the top dogs, the top 10, I guess, but
hmm
technically what we do, there's maybe one or two outside of that. I mean, I guess there's James Madison. So there's maybe a couple there, but for the relevancy, so sticking in, we go through the top 10, right? We're looking at really, I think, college football playoff
hmm
potential undefeated after the regular season. And, you start, obviously starting from the top, going down. I think for me, Georgia doesn't have the best chance because of no Brock Bowers and because of the fact that there's definitely still some meat left on Georgia's schedule bone, some ranked teams. And yeah, interesting analogy there, but Georgia being a dog bone, I think it fits. But so I don't think it's Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. So not even close. I think for me, it's got to be Florida State. And you look at Florida State. Look, the toughest matchup on their schedule remaining, quite frankly, is against your Canes. And outside of that, I just think it's a pretty soft ACC schedule. They just got over the Duke hurdle, which we
Yep.
both agreed. I mean, it was quite a statement, and I
hmm
think really kind of setting a tone for almost stacking up this momentum and this, I think, just almost elevation above the rest of the ACC, which especially I think will run its course over the last handful of games. No ranked teams,
hmm
maybe some I don't know trap game potentials, but I just think Florida State's too complete for me.
Yeah. I think the counter to that would be they do have two tougher matchups left. They don't have anyone that they should lose to on paper.
No,
They don't have
no,
anyone that they'll be an underdog against left.
yeah,
But the two tougher matchups they have are their two biggest rivalry games. And,
yeah.
emotions get the
In
better of people in
state,
those games.
mm-hmm.
People always say, you throw out the record books when, in-state rivals get together.
Uh huh,
So they have Miami and they have Florida, who are
yeah.
both 5-2 and are both, neither of them are ranked and they're both pretty easy to overlook, I would say.
I think
But
both might be away as well,
but
which
when you
is
look
yeah,
at those teams and what they've done this year, it's probably more impressive than you immediately think just looking at them.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I think those are two spots that they could definitely lose. Other than that, I'd be very surprised if they lose. Obviously, like I said, they will be the favorites in every game coming in.
yeah.
Oklahoma's an interesting case. They will also be
Mm-hmm.
favored in every game coming in, and they're the only one of these teams of the Power Five undefeated teams that don't have a ranked team left on their schedule. So that makes it feel easy. Although I agree with you, I don't think it is the easiest path because on that, they've got Oklahoma State, they've got West Virginia, they've got Kansas. These are teams that, again, aren't ranked right now, aren't maybe awesome, but are playing pretty good football. And Oklahoma, last week at least, was playing pretty shaky football. So I think of the big dogs, you're right in saying Florida State. The only one I think we didn't mention, or the only two we didn't mention, Washington. We've talked about that Pac-12 gauntlet they got to go
Yeah.
through. That's tough. And Ohio
Oh, I see.
State, who has Michigan left.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll talk a lot about Michigan later. We'll see if any of this
Why
impacts
are we
them
talking about
going
Michigan?
forward. But as of now, if you can believe that everything is on the up and up, then Michigan's maybe the best team in the country, and that makes it a very
Yeah.
difficult path.
Yeah.
I do want to shout out the three non-Power Five undefeated teams. Air
Mm-hmm.
Force, we've been talking about them. We've been saying
Yep.
this offense gets it
Yep.
done. They do. They have. I forget who it is. They definitely have one more tough. I believe it's a road game too coming up.
Okay.
You have JMU, who has the best chance to go undefeated in total because they don't
Yeah,
get to play in the
that's
postseason. They
yeah,
just have to get through the rest of the regular season.
yeah. Again, not so great.
And they are the class of the Sun Belt, which
Yeah.
is a pretty good conference, actually. A pretty good group of 5 conference, I should say.
Hmm.
And they've been the class of it this year. And then the team that is actually the right answer to this prompt is Liberty. Liberty doesn't have another team with a winning record on their schedule. Not only do they not have a tough game, they don't even play like another decent team all year.
Hmm.
So Liberty, shout out Jamie Chadwell, who did this a couple years ago
Coastal.
at Coastal.
Yep.
Now he took the job at Liberty, which at the time I thought was a little bit of a lateral move. I kind of couldn't understand it, but hey, he's got Liberty undefeated, poised to go undefeated for the season. So who am I to question it?
Hmm. Which, interestingly enough, I mean, he was kind of one of the early rumors for potential South Carolinas when we were looking for a head coach. But ultimately, look, hopefully I don't jinx anything or eat crow, but I'm happy with Shane Beamer. I am happy. I'm on record on this show, happy with Shane Beamer here. But yeah, that's they don't need to take up any relevancy more than they should there. I guess one aside there, I think Florida State too. Same to Oklahoma. Technically, no ranked teams left.
Oh, that
Miami,
is true. You're right.
but Miami, I think how it's trending to your point, how it's trending though for these at this point in time. But there might very well be one or two at the time that they play those teams, potential
Yes.
like 22, 23 ranked teams.
Yeah.
Which probably are going to be. I mean, like you said, favored in every game. Probably pretty easy to say, but there's going to be a handful where we're not going to be talking like everything is going to be double digits. I don't think by any means, double digit lines in terms of, how heavily favored. So
Yeah. And
potential
the
upset
other
punch.
thing is that Florida game's the last game of the season. Florida plays Georgia this week. They play a couple of the tough teams. Florida could look horrible by the time. Yeah, we could be sitting there
could.
going,
They could.
right now they're 5-2. We could be sitting there with them 5-6, being like, why'd we think this was even gonna.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's really more your Canes. Maybe they sneak back into by the time time it comes.
Yeah.
In that matchup, top
And
25.
with Florida having tough opponents, tough SEC opponents left on the schedule, it could go the other way. They win a couple of those, all of
Yeah.
a sudden they're ranked, and it looks like a really tough game. So.
Yeah, or even if they look horrible, they'll be relatively battle tested against decent teams, which
Yep.
they are probably gonna. It might be just almost the biggest motivators, almost a sense of pride game. Just got to come out and just prove something to each other that you know how good you are. Or maybe you're not. You don't like how you maybe got your what handed to you in some SEC matchups, but yeah, interesting. With those two teams, with Oklahoma and Florida State, it's interesting to really see because they have almost inside tracks to really take up that, I think, 3 and 4 spot potentially in the playoff.
I mean, if they're both undefeated conference champions, I don't see why they couldn't even be the 1 or 2 spot. It's
I see Big Ten, maybe Ohio State.
yeah,
Michigan.
but if you have, which I think is likely but not definite, if you have a 1-loss Big Ten champ and you have an undefeated Florida State ACC champ, why would they not be ahead of them? But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out. Now I will flip it to my second Connor's question, which is what NFL team will Jim Harbaugh be coaching for next year?
Yeah, I don't know about the NFL. I'm thinking more up a little bit up north in the CFL with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. To be honest, I'm thinking that, and then I can envision Jim Harbaugh up there in Canada with Cade McNamara at the helm. But no. Jokes aside, I mean,
I think his former quarterback Joe Milton is on a CFL path right now.
That's true too. That's true. Or way back. I mean, I think he's already a legend in the CFL right now. Shea Patterson. I think there's a lot of Michigan quarterbacks, man. That's where they're prime for the CFL. But
Yeah, I mean, Jim Harbaugh, former Michigan quarterback, I think he finished up his career with a little CFL run.
yeah, that's just it's as good of a almost promotional pitch you can make to recruits in the country. You're guaranteed for pro football after this.
Yeah,
Just not maybe in the NFL.
in all seriousness, this is one of the wilder college football stories I can ever remember, and it started off pretty normal. A college football cheating scandal. We get them every few years. Didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. Some sanctions coming, whatever. Figure it out. And every day it feels like more and more gets added to this story. It gets weirder and weirder. And what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so it's like you said. I mean, it's getting just more details come out that just, yeah, pretty wild and so almost unrealistic to just fathom. Like, how can it be like that, like for real? But
Mhm.
I guess we are talking about, I mean, it's, I guess where find myself is thinking, okay, we keep seeing these details emerge about this
Mhm.
guy, Connor Stallions, right? I guess maybe, I don't know how you feel about sharing a name with him, Connor, but I guess we'll touch on that at the end of this. But
Great football minds.
yeah, I guess, yeah, true football guys, just simple as that. But I think it's interesting how, like you said, it kind of started off a little bit kind of mundane, like, okay, college football, like Michigan, a big program, like cheating or
Mhm.
sign stealing allegations, just kind of like, okay, like almost like an Houston Astros. Not trying to make too
Mhm.
many similarities or comparisons there, but okay, you could reasonably expect something like this maybe once a year to
Yeah.
maybe kind of be a stone that's unturned, or turned, I guess. But I think it's been interesting how, yeah, so as we progress day by day, it's like this guy, a staffer in particular, this one
Mhm.
guy is being really singled out and painted out in very specific, measured ways. So to such detailed lengths
Mhm.
about this guy. And in a way, I feel like it's maybe almost like tinfoil hat here, like painting out this guy in such a way, obviously kind of like a scapegoat in a way,
Mhm.
in a certain respect, but just obviously putting all the onus almost on him
Yeah.
to just absolve everybody else, I guess from a hierarchy or leadership perspective within
Mhm.
that Michigan staff. And I think part of that, and I haven't even really, I've just heard of this, I guess, narrative.
Mhm.
I haven't really done too much digging myself, but especially it seems kind of fitting when a guy like Jim Harbaugh, maybe especially, obviously you don't want to associate yourself with any person like this, I guess, to begin with, or you don't want to be easily associated with or
Mhm.
connected to. But with Harbaugh in particular, he's been, I guess, from what I've heard or seen, so outspoken, like I guess in the past
Mhm.
about kind of these kind of very things that
Mhm.
he's now his program's being accused of. So it's kind of just like the ultimate, I guess, hypocrisy that you're trying to avoid at all costs and just pin it on this guy who, yeah, just wild. I'll just, I guess, kick it back to you, Con.
Yeah.
To me, we'll touch on initials MM here, manifesto, quote unquote. But this guy apparently got into, and then I guess take Twitter for a grain of salt, but apparently got into Michigan, accepted, I guess, as a high schooler going,
Mhm.
where he attended college, got accepted there, but opted to attend Navy instead because he apparently thought going to Navy instead of going to Michigan would actually help him in his chances to achieve his manifesto.
I had not
Which
heard that.
that I don't. That's a maybe it's just a tinfoil theory out there, but
Yeah, and there are a lot of tinfoil theories.
yeah,
Dove pretty deep. I've dove pretty deep into a few of them because
hmm,
they're fun to read about.
yeah,
Also doing a lot of like real research on actual facts being reported.
yeah.
That's not one I had heard yet.
Okay,
That would be a very interesting reason for a guy to go to the Naval Academy, which is one of the most difficult things you can do as a high
yeah,
schooler. Get in, you have to get a letter of recommendation from your senator, I believe,
hmm,
and become a Marine, all for the the chance to steal signs for Michigan football. Feels a little outlandish, but I don't know.
very much. But if
A lot of
anything,
stuff
it's
this guy does feels
that's what
outlandish.
I'm saying. It's not that. It's not without. Yeah, anything could come out, and it's not totally outlandish. We think, okay, maybe if this guy is what all this stuff that's being said about him, okay, he seems kind of crazy enough, outlandish enough, where it could potentially very well be the be the case with him. But yeah, it's like I don't know. It's just, yeah, I guess a
Yeah.
Twitter sphere X rumor, but in a way, it's like he's so, yeah, he's just obviously, and then even to go to, I guess, a
Mhm.
service academy, you kind of have to be wired a certain way, I guess.
Yeah.
And not to paint a broad brush and I guess in any way kind of generalize this one guy
Mhm.
for representing Navy or service academies in general, but it's like, I guess with this guy, I mean, he with a 600-page manifesto with, I guess, the lengths to which he's gone, like, a little bit crazy. It's almost like, okay, I guess maybe his mind could have been like so made up if he's this lifelong Michigan guy, but okay, I really want to. this calculated. He's a just such the degree of calculation, I guess,
Yeah.
is just opens up the world of any possibility you could tell me. I wouldn't be shocked of hearing any news.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to my point from the very first article that came out, before I think Michigan had even acknowledged this.
Mm-hmm.
There was a drop, I forget exactly what publication, who broke the story. And Connor Stalions was named by name in the very first article.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is so weird. Why would they not just say a Michigan staffer? That's what they always do. And they don't want to ruin some guy's career over.
Yeah.
It,
Or you
know,
just. Yeah.
Well, where I could see what you were talking about is the Michigan program, maybe Harbaugh specifically, saying like, this was this guy. This wasn't the Michigan program.
Distance ourselves quick.
But, the people reporting on it were immediately just naming this guy, which I thought was very weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you read about this guy, the more you start to go, could he have been doing this alone? Not alone, because I know there's video of him on the sidelines, stealing signs and telling it to the coordinators.
Yeah.
But, apparently he is, his LinkedIn was found, and part of his LinkedIn was like, he was like, I'm really good at like real-time decoding signals, which is totally legal.
A Navy code breaker. Apparently. Yeah. That's his background.
You can in college football, it's totally legal to stand on the sidelines, see a code in real time and break it,
sure,
and then tell a coordinator, hey, they're going to throw the ball here or whatever. And so I think there is a chance this guy seems, gung-ho enough about Michigan, to say the least, write a 600-page manifesto, mm-hmm. And seems like he would have done anything and did do anything to get on the Michigan staff, that he actually may have been doing this on his own and then going to the games and presenting it as like, hey, coach, I'm really good at stealing this stuff real time. I know it's a bit of a conspiracy theory. It would feel crazy to me that no one would go like, how's he decoding these signs on the first drive? So I think probably everyone in the program knew. I think it was probably organizational.
Yeah.
I do think this is like the one guy, the more you read about him, where you go, maybe he could have been doing this on his own and not even telling Jim Harbaugh that he's gone to these games and scouted and all that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so, I guess, complex. And so, mm-hmm. I mean, it's trying to, I guess, almost unpick like, almost like the criminal like a whole like message board where you have the red dots and the pins on a whole map and everything. Mm-hmm. It's just like this really, I guess, complex, obviously, operation that he seemingly ran obviously week to week. And there's these, I guess, Venmo screenshots about other teams even outside of the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was where I think that kind of leads me into, I think, a Clemson and Tennessee, when Clemson and Tennessee, I guess, were doing well or looked on track to maybe be a potential Michigan matchup in the college football playoff last year. And it's just with respect to those two teams, Clemson and Tennessee, and maybe their sort of circuitous, somewhat degree of connection because, potential Michigan opponent, but maybe not initially scheduled or guaranteed to schedule to play, but just this guy trying to cover his bases, scouting the entirety of pretty much the college football landscape, not even the Big Ten. I'm now seeing, Tennessee fans that
I was wondering if you were going to bring this up.
salty fans that are now saying, oh, look at these clips. Oh, everybody on the South Carolina defense last year, there's a clip where Holly Rowe, even just the initial ESPN, just network sideline reporter talking about everybody. They even have these wristbands where they're, identifying on the field. They're almost keying him in for, I guess, formation recognition or just streamlining the defense in a matchup against a very obviously high-powered offense, Tennessee at the time. And then there's these wearing these bands, wristbands, and then Michigan connections. I think Clayton White was our South Carolina defensive coordinator, was a Michigan guy, dating back, I guess, 7, 8, 9, 10 years before. There's these Michigan connections. I mean, look, I guess you can put on your tinfoil hats with Connor Stalions and the Michigan program, and really, I guess, routinely, obviously, the Big Ten being that composes, I guess, 10 games a year in conference play. South Carolina, I don't think we would be so, well-oiled machine, tinfoil hat enough, even with, I guess, Clayton White, our defensive,
Hmm.
whoever on our defensive staff connections, Shane Beamer, I guess,
Hmm.
connections too, dating back to, because obviously every college football, it's
Yeah,
all, everybody's
everybody knows
connected.
everybody.
Yeah,
Everybody
in some
worked on a
way.
staff coming up at
Exactly.
some point. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's so easy to, make
Hmm.
pinpoint those little things. I just don't think South Carolina, look, I'm not maybe self-respecting enough. I don't think we would be anywhere close to concocting, I guess, some mega plot where then we were so, up for these last two games of our schedule to then just be able to beat, a Tennessee and, a strong Clemson teams at the time. I just don't think that's at all the case.
Okay. I will say that I'm not gonna cast any aspersions on the South Carolina program
Okay.
because I don't know. It would be unfair of me to just speak out of nowhere.
We're all doing is speculate
Yeah, but if
ultimately.
I were going to do that, what I might say is that Shane Beamer, when he was an assistant at Virginia Tech, was actually disciplined for taking or basically accepting video that just a Virginia Tech superfan had taken of the opponent's sidelines and sent him and every other assistant on Virginia Tech staff in the DMs. Like, not paid by them, not just a Virginia Tech superfan, which, interestingly, ESPN wrote an article I think we'll reference a little bit where they had a bunch of college coaches asked about sign stealing. And a bunch of them said, every week, our crazy superfans just send me video of the opposing.
Hmm.
And of course, they all said, I don't open those messages because that would be wrong. But but they were like, you don't even need to do what Connor Stallions was doing. You can just wait for your DMs, and your super fans will go pre-scout games and send you clips of the signs because fans are crazy, particularly college football fans. But that is something that Shane Beamer was actually disciplined for doing when he was on the Virginia Tech staff. So I'm not saying that they had to be in some like crazy conspiracy where they were locked in with Michigan. This Connor Stallions could have just sent Shane Beamer a DM, and who's to say that they didn't?
Sure.
I mean, it was a little. It was basically the story of the end of the season last year that a 6-4 South Carolina team all of a sudden beat Clemson and Tennessee, who were top of the country at the time. It feels like, hey, maybe there's some dots to connect here. I'm not saying there are any, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
but no,
It's
that's another Twitter conspiracy
yeah,
theory. There's no evidence to back any of that up.
yeah. I don't know. It just begs the question, I guess, in some respects. Okay, if we were able to, have some, whatever, however you want to
Mhm.
think of it, or whatever the degree, extent, intensity of it,
Mhm.
for those last, two games, pretty mega upsets that no
Yeah.
one really saw coming at the time. Well, okay, if we did that, then what are we doing this season? Can we, like, you would have
Connor
hoped, can we
Stallions
just
isn't
still,
Connor Stallions isn't scouting your opponents for this season.
well, he could still go to, well,
He
just
didn't
go
need
to
to scout
games.
Florida. He knows
He could
Michigan's
go
not
to,
playing Florida.
no, well, then even if it's not Stallions, and if it's just Shane Beamer getting DMs, if I'm saying, it's just like,
Hmm.
if you had that success, why didn't you do it this season?
Why aren't you
Come
cheating
on.
more?
Yeah, why are we going through that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So
Um,
it's like we're on the ropes here, trying to even get now into a bowl game, and maybe we'll see a strong South Carolina end of the season again. But I don't know.
yeah.
I think that.
But I do think we should talk about this in the context of because there's a bunch of tinfoil hat theories out there, which we don't need to dive into any more of them. We should talk about what it means for college football. I think the most obvious thing, and I said it as a joke at the beginning, but I think it's 100% real, is there will be some type of suspension for Jim Harbaugh coming out of this. He's already flirted with the NFL the last 3 off seasons in a row.
Hmm.
He was a very successful NFL head coach. There are certainly NFL teams that would want to hire him. I think he's not going to serve a single day of a suspension. If he gets one or
You
a bowl
think?
ban or anything, he's going to the NFL.
You think it's like a yeah? I guess
So I
see
think this
this.
is the
Yeah.
last season we see him coaching Michigan because of this scandal
Okay.
in part.
Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree? Or?
I think what you just laid out is pretty coherent and sensible in the fact that yeah, okay, we're gonna almost 99.9 100%. Well, the reality is we're gonna go through this season
Mhm.
a couple. I guess we have we're in late October here, so we'll go through, I guess, these next kind of 9, 10 weeks,
Hmm.
and then we know we're going to then hear as soon as the playoffs done, because obviously Michigan looks like they have very much the inside track to get in there.
Hmm.
So once the playoffs done, and obviously just not taken away from spotlights of the national championship
Yeah.
Final Four, okay, that's 10 weeks is up. Okay, then it's going to be like, what can just hit the fan. And now it's like, oh, Michigan, here we go. Like Harbaugh potential. As soon as the rumblings and the rumors start to come out, before it even maybe even manifest in the sense of a Harbaugh suspension, like
Yeah.
you're saying, then we hear, oh, wait, the Bears are hiring Jim Harbaugh.
Hmm.
Like you're saying, I think it would just be like, okay, as soon as it's like cold feet, I'm out.
Yeah.
Avoid muddying too much.
Yeah, and I think it actually may uh, be the most helpful thing for him to do if he could to leave the NCAA before any ruling would be on this because
I would say you can't do it.
well they could still
Yeah.
retroactively say you're suspended for 2 years
Yeah.
and he's like, well, I don't coach in the NCAA, so
Yeah.
but also they may just not do that if he's an NFL coach, not an NCAA coach. And the other thing is I believe, I could be wrong, there have been unfortunate instances where they don't do this, but I believe the NCAA has kind of learned from their suspension policies and stuff, bowl bans and all that, that if Harbaugh leaves and all of his staff leaves with him, they won't penalize the program because it's not on the kids. The kids probably didn't even know this was happening.
Yeah.
Or even
Yeah.
if they did, what are they going to do? Rat out their head coach? You can't expect that out of a college kid. So to put a bowl ban in place or to do anything to the program, it's unnecessarily hurting players. The NCAA in the past has done that. Big. I mean, UMass basketball was maybe the worst thing of it. Calipari was cheating. They almost give UMass basketball the death penalty. They went from one of the best programs in the country to what the hell is UMass basketball these days?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing basically. And Calipari just left and went to Kentucky. He didn't have anything on his hands. He said, "No, you found UMass and you hurt UMass. You didn't hurt me." So I think if he leaves, it'd probably be better for the program, better for him, better for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it does seem like it might be. Yeah, there's in a host, like you're saying, just the how all signs the last couple off seasons. Like it seems like Harbaugh has been now destined to kind of make a return to the NFL.
Yep.
For sure, for sure. But
Okay. The other way that this could affect college football is how much was this helping Michigan? We know they're not going to be doing it anymore.
mm-hmm.
So what's that lead to the rest of the season looking like? Because they've been putting it on teams. They've looked
Yeah.
almost like they knew what the other team was going to call,
Mm-hmm.
and so not being able to do that, how do you think that affects the rest of this season? Right, like you talk about, Michigan's got an inside track to the college football playoff.
Yeah.
What if they're not that good, but they were playing that good because
I think that they are this good or close to
Mhm.
as good. I think they're gonna be fine. I think.
I do too. As I mentioned, that ESPN article, they interviewed a bunch of current and former coaches and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
basically the takeaway from everyone was every team is doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt
So-
Rule even said, he said the way that you could stop this very easily, put the coach to quarterback, microphones in the helmets like they do in the NFL, and they do it big time high school programs. College football's like the only place where they don't do that.
Mhm.
And then there's no signs because you're just talking to your quarterback.
Yeah.
And
Then
it's-
you'd have to have the best lip reader in the world to get the.
That's why they do one of these. They get the play sheet and they go,
Yeah, that's true.
But Matt Rule said the reason that doesn't exist in college football, because that's a lot of people have said, why not just do that? He said the reason is coaches want to be able to steal signs. It gets voted down. It gets brought up and voted down every time it gets brought up.
Figure if you can do it better than or as good
Because
or better than
coaches feel like they have an
it-
advantage
yeah,
if they
gain
can
an
steal
advantage if
signs.
you're good, yeah. Yeah.
And so this is, I saw one quote that I believe it was a former, I think it was a former SEC and Big Ten coach. I don't think head coach. They said a former coach with SEC and Big Ten ties or whatever they said. And he said the two rules that Michigan broke that are illegal is you can't go in person to scout games ahead of time. You can watch all the film you want, all that. You can't go in person to future opponents. and two, you can't videotape anything. You have to do it all just with your eyeballs.
And
And
notes, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, and so and he what he said was every single team in the country is breaking one of those two rules. Half of them are breaking both. So this feels like something that if everyone's doing it, or at least half the teams are doing it, you would think all of the successful teams are doing it. It's probably not going to hurt Michigan that much.
Hmm.
Because also, I would bet if you're, if you're Shane Beamer and you do have guys out advanced scouting, you're saying we're done now. We're not doing it for the rest of this season. While all of the college football world is watching that. I
Hmm.
don't mean to pick on your guy. I just
No, go
pick the
ahead.
head coach because we
Yeah.
said because we were
Yeah.
talking about him. But so I think we might see, I don't know. I don't think it will negatively impact them too much based on what I read from all of those coaches.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and like it's almost in a nutshell. I feel like potentially, and this is, I guess, just being really skeptical or going as far as to think, well, there's a good chance that there's a program or two out there that it might be even worse or to some degrees just better at concealing the potential Connor stallions
Yeah.
in terms of not making it easily
Yeah.
identifiable who that person might be. But yeah, I think that's we gave it a pretty in-depth, I think,
Yeah.
look into
One
covering
last thing
this.
before we go into this game, I
Hmm.
just want to bring up maybe the most interesting nugget left in this story that we don't know
Hmm.
yet is this all came out because a private investigation firm was hired to look into if Michigan was sign stealing. And that's how they found out because he was buying the tickets in his own name and stuff. And they're like, oh, there's a Michigan staffer buying tickets. And then, they did their investigation from there.
Hmm.
Um, who hired the private investigation firm? It wasn't the NCAA. They investigate things on their own. They don't hire
Yeah.
private investigation firms. So then that is the one thing that there's been lots of potential things on Twitter. I don't want to throw any of them out because
Hmm.
we have no idea. But it will be interesting if that ever comes out to find out who it was.
I think we should maybe even pay attention to, especially with these two matchups, the marquee ones Michigan has left on their schedule. I think maybe we see just some things come out around the time of those games. I
Well,
wouldn't be surprised.
Ryan Day has publicly accused Clemson of doing exactly this in the past, saying that I believe his quote was, Dabo runs like a Navy SEAL ring trying to steal signs. Very funny that the Michigan guy was a Marine.
Yeah.
But so Ryan Day has been very publicly outspoken against sign stealing and saying, like, teams are cheating and no one cares, basically.
Yeah.
So there are some people saying, did Ryan Day call up this private investigation firm? I don't want to,
No,
put that
no,
on
yeah.
him, but
But
it would be interesting.
yeah, no, and on the other end, I think for me, I know I've seen, or I think James Franklin's made some interesting comments within the last week or two.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in just direct response to questions that were asked. I think he, though, along with Rule, though, to my understanding, gave relatively straightforward, like
Mm-hmm.
actual concrete answers to the point. Didn't just kind of beat around the bush.
Yeah.
But so maybe it almost kind of absolves him of potential blame there, or potentially thinking as much as in the lens of Ryan Day, who's been as outspoken as he has been.
Yeah.
But
I think Matt Rule definitely is not a suspect
no,
because a lot of people were interpreting some of his other comments on the story as
I did
him
it.
being
Yeah,
like, I'm also doing this, so let's not make it a big deal.
yeah, just completely kind of play it down. Yeah,
Yeah, he pretty much was like, hey, everyone, likes sign stealing. That's why there's no helmets in the microphone. So everybody kind of wants to sign steal. And other than that, I don't want to talk about another team's business. It was like,
yeah,
oh, what does that mean?
yeah. Interesting comments to
Yeah.
say the least, for sure. But all right, dive into this.
Let's
week
dive
9.
right into week 9. Not the most marquee slate we've seen yet.
No.
But I actually think there's some really good games here. There's some ones I'm excited to watch.
Yep. No, I agree with that. Going, I guess, in kind of sequential orders or noon kickoffs here. ACC bout, Florida State, Wake Forest. I think are picked to, pretty good chance to be unbeaten for Florida State here. And I think, look, a 20, almost 3 touchdown line. I guess keeping in mind Florida State's on the road here. I guess maybe I like Wake Forest to maybe cover 20.5. But I think Florida State, it's still like a 2 touchdown win, at least for me.
I don't even like Wake Forest to cover here. I get maybe it's a bit of a emotional letdown spot coming off the Big Duke win, and so maybe Florida State comes out
Yeah.
sleepwalking. But uh, I don't know how much Wake you've seen this year. I've seen too much for a team that's not very relevant. But to
Hmm.
me, to my eye test anyway, they look like the worst 4-3 team in the country. They look like they should not have a winning record. And Florida State looks like maybe the best team in the entire country. So yeah, if I'm just playing who's the better team, I think Florida is more than, or Florida State, I should say, is more than 20.5 points better than Wake Forest.
Okay. Yeah. It's like I almost see maybe a potential, I mean, in the range of outcomes, like a game script where Florida State jumps out so quick in the first half, and then maybe we get into 15, 20 minutes of football back end of the game where Wake Forest can kind of backdoor cover,
Could
maybe.
be. It's a
But
big enough number for that to happen, but
yeah.
I might have this, if I were predicting an outcome, I might have this at like Florida State up 36-0 at the half, take out the starters,
Wow.
and then the backups are still probably better than
Okay.
Wake.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting to see how this one plays out, but I think we're both very supremely confident in Florida State to show up for this.
Mm-hmm.
And then Oklahoma, undefeated, decent path as well to be that at the end of this regular season, traveling to Lawrence to take on the Jayhawks there. How do you view this one?
Kansas is a good team.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about them a bunch. They're 5-2. They're just outside the rankings. They were just ranked.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't love the spot for them because it feels like last week should have been a wake up call for Oklahoma.
mm-hmm.
If you're gonna come get an undefeated team as a an unranked kind of underdog,
Yeah,
you almost want them to be riding high, looking past you, and then you come get them by surprise.
yeah. A little bit unlucky that, yeah,
Yeah, it does feel like Oklahoma escapes with that very close win last week, and now
Venables has him up like really
yeah,
energized to just go
they
out on the front foot.
they
Yeah,
gotta be.
uh,
That being said, this is probably the best team Oklahoma plays for the rest of the year. So if we're looking for spots where Oklahoma could lose that undefeated tag,
mm-hmm.
this is one of the best shots there's going to be at it.
Yep, yep. No, I think, and they have Kansas. I mean, regardless even who's under center. I mean, they've got some talent skill in terms of skill wise on
Yeah,
the offense to potentially to put up some points possibly and make it a game for sure.
yeah.
But
The other thing I don't love about this spot for Kansas is Kansas is really good on the ground, even running with the quarterback, but also running with the
Devin
running
Neal,
backs.
yeah,
And that's not a way to play from behind, obviously.
true,
Oklahoma can score a
true.
lot. If Oklahoma goes up by
Hmm.
a decent number, it's tough to come behind when you're a run first offense.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. Maybe we're both kind of intimating maybe Oklahoma to cover this 9 points. You think?
I think yeah, if I had to go one way, that's where I'd go. It's
Yeah.
certainly not a best bet for me, but
No, I think that's. I think maybe it's not. Yeah, not a best bet for me either, but maybe close to. The more we just
mhm.
talking through this game, the more I kind of maybe see okay, Oklahoma kind of just coming out as a true response type of game
Mhm.
for especially on a national scale too as we get into this kind of stretch part of the
Yep.
schedule here. But another team on that theme of come back and out, just respond. Penn State playing host to Indiana to
Mhm.
wrap out round out the noon kickoffs here, top 25. 32 points for Penn State. Think they cover that at home?
So Penn State hasn't even scored 32 points on their own a couple times this
Yeah,
season.
yeah,
That being said, I think they do. I think that's what this line is telling you is that certainly the bookmakers are supremely confident in a bounce back spot.
yep.
I think Drew Aller, part of him playing poorly, but also part of him coming out after the game and saying all that stuff, saying how bad that he played and taking all that onus means he's if he's got a great game in him, it's going to be this week because I'm sure he was doing nothing but grinding film and working extra hard this whole week to
Hmm.
try to bounce back from that. I don't think Indiana's very good. I'm taking Penn State here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's almost look. We brought up UMass for Calipari and the basketball angle earlier in this show, but They did lay 63. I know in host to UMass 63 nothing, but Indiana I think is
A
obviously
better team,
a lot better than UMass. But
but they don't have to put up 63, just
no,
32.
no, yeah, and I guess interestingly enough, it's almost like this. So over under 47 here. It kind of so it's implied about a 40-7 type game in terms of the line. Penn so that's like a 30. I guess Penn State by 33 there, and then it getting that to that 47 total. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how supremely confident I am in Penn State getting into that 40 mark. I mean, but even if they don't, if they get to just that 33, 34, 35 mark, they could easily shut out
Penn
on
State's already pitched a
defense.
couple
Yeah.
shutouts this year.
Yeah.
So
So maybe, yeah, I guess you know what, I think I lean with that 32, I think is with where you do with this line for Penn State.
Right.
I guess moving to a bit of a closer line here, about in half of that. Georgia just over 14, 14 and a half, traveling to Jacksonville to play the Florida Gators here without Brock Bowers. Potential Carson Beck statement game, which I've seen people bring up. He actually does have almost a unique situation to make a run for at least being on stage for coming to the Heisman ceremony. People even made the direct comparison equally. So him and McCarthy, JJ McCarthy, are in really similar boats here, especially this back end of the schedule to kind of make some noise, basically run in as the quarterbacks, the leaders on offense, signal callers of maybe potentially number one, number two teams in the country. And Beck is even, as much as it's easy to overlook the Georgia quarterback, with obviously all the other talent that's on that team, he's only really outclassed by McCarthy, I think, in terms of touchdown passes this year. Other than that, it's pretty close between them. They both have, I think, a fighter's chance.
And I mean, I think McCarthy right now is actually the leader in the clubhouse, but
Possibly.
I forgot to make a point earlier that I will make now. A certain percentage of Heisman voters will not vote for a Michigan player this year with the whole team
Yeah.
mired in scandal.
Sure, that's
I
important.
almost think that this killed McCarthy's Heisman campaign.
That's a really good point. I haven't really even seen that or thought of that too often, but no, that's a point too. Yeah, it's just the appearance of having a Michigan player win it this
Yeah.
year. Just not, yeah.
Now about this game specifically, first of all, game that I got to get to at some point, and I don't root for either of these programs. I really don't root for Florida, being a Miami fan, but
Yeah.
I also have no love for Georgia. But world's largest outdoor cocktail party, always a neutral site game. It's like the Red River with Texas, Oklahoma, and they just, you know, they say it's like the best atmosphere in college football to go to. I would love to go watch one of these games in person. Also, Jacksonville is in Florida, but they say it's essentially equidistant from Gainesville and from
Yeah.
Athens.
Yeah.
So you get
Pretty
both
good crowd.
whole
Yeah.
state. I love
Kind
neutral
of,
site
yeah.
college football games because it's really the only place in American sports where you get half the stadium being loud and crazy fans for one team and the other half loud and crazy for the other. Any home game you go to is totally dominated, and that goes to professional sports. There aren't neutral site games.
Sure.
So college football is. I love those types of games. Those types of games. I'd love to go to this one. That being said, this year I hear a lot of smoke about this being Florida's big spot to come up and make noise, and Graham Mertz has actually been better than people think, which if you look at the stats, he has. If you look at the eye test, it doesn't feel like he's been that great.
Did it against a very bad South Carolina
Yeah.
defense.
And Brock Bowers is out, and I just think with this much smoke around, oh, Florida's going to do something big. Georgia hears it. They put it up on the bulletin board. They smash them. This could
Yeah.
be like a 28-point Georgia win.
I pretty much in the same boat, I think, as you. It's almost too, almost the narrative. It's just too, I guess, kind of going up. It's going so far, I guess, away from pro Georgia. Whether maybe if it's not anti Georgia necessarily, just pro Florida maybe. I think Georgia comes out and really just I think handles this game pretty. I could see a really quick start and just not letting off the gas, quite honestly.
I couldn't agree more.
And then interesting now with speaking of big name absentees on offenses, top 10 teams in the country, Texas, without Quinn Ewers, which outside of the Bama game, he hasn't really been the most consistent or looked the best, especially
Hmm.
deep down, driving the ball down the field. So Malik Murphy, potential announcement statement game for his college career here. And people are already, I think bringing up really for his case to potentially be that big name transfer quarterback after the season to maybe
Yeah.
be the next Kalen DeBoer, Michael Penix type. So I I don't BYU a decent team too. 19 point line. I'm just not really seeing this one clear. Con, where are you?
Yeah. Malik Murphy's in a tough spot here because there are already people everywhere clamoring for Arch to play in this game.
Yeah,
I get it. His last name is Manning, so
yeah.
fans from the most in-depth recruiting fans who watch high school football, they love him because he was incredible. He was one of the top quarterback recruits of all time. All the way down to fans who haven't watched a college game in 15 years. They're like, oh, we got a Manning? Maybe
Yeah.
I'll tune in this Sunday or this Saturday. So it's I feel bad for Malik Murphy in that respect. If he does anything other than play perfect, the
I see.
crowd is going to turn on him.
Sure.
That being said, he played great last week. He's played. There's a reason he's number 2 on this depth chart. He's a very good quarterback. Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned, if he does play great this week, keep the job, whatever, have a great end of the season, I think he'll be the most interesting transfer of all time because you talk about a Michael Penix. He transferred out of Indiana after he maybe wasn't going to keep his job. He had played so poorly. Like, have we seen a quarterback who's maybe the best player on a really good team hit the transfer portal?
I guess Caleb Williams, but that's because of the
Again,
but
yeah.
as a true individual transfer type situation, I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. I guess in fairness, Penix, I don't think for him it was just total injury derailment for him, not maybe as much
Yeah, but
play.
when he went to Washington, they brought in 2 other transfer portal quarterbacks, and they
So,
weren't sure
yeah,
he
that
was even
wasn't-
going to play.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah. It wasn't like this.
Yeah.
He wasn't this bona fide, okay, Kalen DeBoer knew.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
he
believe
can
one of the
say-
guys they brought in was Martinez, who had started multiple years for Nebraska. So it was like
That sounds, yeah, that
Yeah.
does sound right.
it was. There was a real chance he wasn't even going to win the Washington job and never play. This would be a totally different scenario. It'd be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably talking too far out. Let's focus on this Saturday's game.
Yeah.
BYU's had an interesting season. They're 5-2. You think that's pretty good. They had a big week, big game maybe 2 weeks ago against TCU, and they were 4-1 or whatever they were at the time. Yeah, 4-1, and it was looking like, okay, this is where they can make a statement. They can show we're for real. They got Keaton Slovis, who started at USC, then to Pitt. He's been a big name in college football, and they got smacked by TCU.
Yeah.
Smacked. It wasn't even a game. So yeah, that's the lasting memory because of them for me. I don't know that that's fair, but I do think Texas is probably better on all levels. So
Yeah.
if I had to play this one, I don't know. 19's a big number for a backup quarterback, but
But
I think that's what I'd do. I'd play Texas.
that's, I think, where I maybe lean as well here. Just because of the fact that I think Sark is the guy as a coach that'll just be able to, I mean, almost irrespective of who maybe is at quarterback, I think he'll just have that offense kind of churning. And they lean on Jonathan Brooks.
And that's the other thing, I talked about how daunting of a task it is for Malik Murphy, knowing that he's got all this pressure now with a great guy behind him. But the flip side of that coin is, if he's not playing well, you get to put in Arch Manning.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. And for BYU, listen, Tyler Algier, Puka Nakua ain't walking through that door for this game. But yeah, BYU just, it's tough to, I guess, be.
Is Taysom Hill walking through that door? I think
I don't
he's got
think
some eligibility.
Yeah, because he's had a bunch of, I think, ACL, some knee injuries, some injuries in the past. But
He's only
he
like
could be.
32. That's young for that team.
He's going to be, I think, Taysom Hill, look, the name alone and with the age, I think he could maybe almost double as a Australian kicker
Yeah.
with that Australian rules punter. But yeah, all right, I think enough with that matchup. I think
Yes.
going a little bit west here, Oregon. I think one of the marquee, if not the marquee matchup, I think Oregon Utah here.
I think it's the marquee
Yeah,
matchup. I'm very excited about this game.
good. I mean, you can when all else might be a little bit in terms of matchups and
Mhm.
scheduling. You can rely on the Pac-12 to find you something, and we have that at Salt Lake City.
Mhm.
Utah, after a pretty big emotional win, last second field goal over USC, they're riding pretty high. Is this a potential Utah just kind of gets completely outmatched in a early, I guess, offensive attack from Oregon, maybe, and it's not that close, or what? How do you think this?
I think this is the toughest defense that Oregon's has played all
Yeah,
year.
no, that's
Um,
exactly.
which is going to be interesting to see how Bo Nix and that offense handle that.
Hmm.
This is a really, really intriguing game for me. I almost don't know which way I fall on it, which means I guess I'll take Utah because they're getting 6.5, and I could see either team winning this game just as much as I could see the other one. It's a stylistic matchup, like you said. If
Okay.
this becomes a run and gun shootout, Utah won't be able to keep up. If this is tough in the mud, trade and punts type of game, Oregon isn't going to win that style of game against this defense. So
Yeah,
yeah, where do you have it?
I potential gut off alert here. I know. I think I do kind of lend myself to Oregon. I think kind of jumping out early here and covering the 6.5. Honestly,
Mhm.
but Utah certainly no slouch, and I don't think I.
But yeah, this is also
Regardless,
like week 3 in a row of me being like, Utah's pretty good. And you feel like, I don't see it. And then they keep winning.
no, I just think they got such a big emotional win
Hmm.
against USC, and I think no, I do. I believe in Dan Lanning and Bo Nix. I think
Hmm.
a little bit more, and I just think
More than Kyle Whittingham?
um more than good, fair question. I just think
More than
uh,
Kyle Whittingham and the elevation? Utah's won 19 in a row at home. You don't get streaks like that by accident.
no, no, you don't. Man, I just no, I'm just leaning Oregon here to
Mhm.
cover the 6.5. Don't feel fantastic. Not a best bet necessarily, but
Mhm.
we'll see. I guess we'll review the rest of this slate. Potential gut off though to keep in mind here, and I have never lost a gut off, so 3-0
Mhm.
there
I don't think you can
potentially.
call it a gut off if this was a pick you had coming in. The gut off is when we neither of us have a
Yeah,
pick, we just have a gut feeling.
yeah, yeah. So
I
we'll
don't even
get
think I
into
have a
it.
gut feeling towards Utah. I just
You
said
just
I think it's
think
a
you believe
50-50
in.
game, so I'll take the points.
Okay, okay, yeah. We'll figure that. We'll figure this out a little bit later. But
Hmm.
okay, Pitt taking on Notre Dame
Rivalry game.
in South Bend,
Hmm.
not Big Ben or North Bend. 20.5 point line for Notre Dame here, and I think they cover that 20.5.
Yeah, I mean, they're not awesome at scoring more than 20.5, but
No, but
um,
when I
no, I
think
don't think Pitt's very good. I think Pitt showed up and got their big win a couple weeks ago. I they're going to be up for the game. I just don't know that that means enough against a team this much better than them.
yeah, on the road, I just think in that environment, I think Notre Dame is going to be able to just take care of
And
that.
that is the one thing they say that the Notre Dame home crowd is not a very hostile environment because it's not a ton of like college kids and recent grads. It's a lot
I
more
see.
like grandparents
Yeah,
taking their grandkids to
that's
the
true.
game. But you don't get the home field advantage that you get at Pitt, which is a very good home field advantage.
Yeah,
So at the very least, you lose out on that.
yeah, which
And
Pitt losing in that sense, yeah, that
hmm.
advantage, or yeah. So all right, so traveling, I guess. Well, that's not a true ACC matchup, but Duke Louisville is.
Is
I like Duke here.
I like Louisville here. So
Okay.
um, I like Duke. I think Duke's a better team. I also think that Duke's a better team when Riley Leonard's playing, and Riley Leonard's not going to play. So uh,
Yeah, but
that's a massive swing for me.
I, It does. It does obviously, and I mean it is with his talent. I I don't know. I think Duke. I think Duke can certainly hang with a Louisville team that I guess I'm not the biggest fan of, and maybe for you were asking earlier about I guess oh, do you lean Lanning and Bo Nix, I guess, over, a Kyle Whittingham?
Hmm.
I think I do lean Elko here
Yeah.
over Brom. And I think, yeah,
Although Brahms put a lot of good teams on the field at Purdue, he's not had the top end success, but you know,
yeah,
uh, he's a good regular season coach. I like Mike Elko better too. Mike Elko is going to land a big job as we've talked
hmm
about. But yeah, it's I don't hate Jeff Brom, but
okay. Yeah, maybe this is a go. Tulane Rice. Interesting matchup to be talking about here in the top 25. But I think two decent teams here with Tulane potentially being on upset watch here in Houston.
also sneakily like two of the most talented quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah, talk about transfers that were once at both USC and, well, the backyard brawl pits
Yeah.
rival in West Virginia.
And at Georgia, and everyone,
That's
if
I forgot about that.
if he had been healthy, it was all that happened was he got hurt, and that's when Bennett came in, and
Totally.
Georgia fans spent the rest of that season basically going, if JT gets healthy, we could be a national championship team because Stetson can't win it all.
That's
Then
true. I totally forgot about that era.
then
That was a
Stetson
weird
did
era.
win it all, and JT had to transfer again.
Yep. Yeah, no,
But yeah,
but
he's only
having
on his fifth college. Let's not
only
razz
that.
him too much.
Only that. And look, some people it takes a little bit for them to kind of grow and mature into the pretty good quarterback that at least at Rice, and he's done a good job. JT Daniels, that is, and
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I just like Rice here getting 10.5 to cover that at home.
Yeah. Rice is probably a better team than their record indicates. They're 4-3, but they've played a tougher schedule than
I think, yeah,
most
yeah,
non-power five teams have to. Uh, 10.5 is an interesting number. I think Tulane's a much better team,
okay,
but I think are they 14 points better? I don't know. So 10.5 is yeah. I like the number. I'm gonna say I won't make a pick.
okay, I got you. Yeah, just respecting the line there.
Yeah.
USC going to Berkeley and Cal. I guess talk about probably not. We talked about maybe Notre Dame not being, I guess, a great home field. I think Cal is, and certainly out west in general. Not to disrespect too much, but not some great football home fields. You traditionally like to think of. But
Not in the state of California,
nope,
certainly.
not at all.
Washington's on the West Coast. They've got a great home field
Yeah,
advantage.
Washington. I think Oregon
Yeah,
even as well. But
but
yeah, something about California, man. They're out surfing, I guess, on the weekends here. But we're talking USC only 10.5. I feel like you talked about how Tulane's a much better team than Rice. I think even with USC struggles this year, on a 2-game losing skid here, I think USC is just so much better than Cal here. And I 10.5. I guess I would kind of lean USC here.
I mean, my thoughts on it are 10's a fine, 10.5, whatever it is. It's a fine line because all Cal can do, their one thing they have in their hip pocket is they can score.
Mm-hmm.
USC, all they can't do is stop anyone.
Yeah,
So
all they can do is score as well. So then shootout. Yeah,
yeah.
shootout territory. Yeah.
So yeah, I could see it being a 10-point game where there's like 2 punts in the entire game, and it's just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just 50-40.
Sure.
It's still 10 points.
Sure.
But.
Yeah. That's no good. If there is one thing, yeah, Cal could maybe not. Yeah. So maybe kind of keep some pace in a potential shootout. To that idea. But yeah. I mean, not something I'm so gung ho about because I mean USC they're clearly on just a bad trajectory, but this could be maybe a bounce back, a potential Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley kind of wake up call
hmm
to kind of almost re-announce themselves here. Not obviously, I mean, look, they're just lingering, staying in the top 25 right now, but potential. Okay, come out, make a little noise, get back in maybe to the top 20, depending on how this one shakes out. But yeah, I think a more intriguing matchup, Washington Stanford,
Yep.
for me. Although it's a much larger line here for what's Washington, 26.5, which is quite the number. We did see obviously an uncharacteristic game from that offense at home against an Arizona State team that's really not that great. Um, you know, maybe this is the classic, I guess, bounce back. Washington's just firing on all cylinders here, but I don't know. I kind of like Stanford enough to maybe just make it a semi-respectable game where I see maybe them losing by, I see it maybe being a 24-point game here. In the realm of, I guess, 3 touchdowns, 3.5-ish touchdowns or fewer. I don't know. 26.5 seems to me just a little bit large, but I don't know. It could easily be a 24-0 game at the half, And
Yeah.
it's just,
I mean, the way I see it depends on what you think about this Washington team, really.
yeah.
I think they're good. I think they're very good.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Well, I think there's some people who look at last week and go, maybe one win against Oregon, we shouldn't have put them up that high. I don't.
Yeah.
I look at last week and
Yeah.
go, it's a fluke. Good teams have them.
Yeah.
Georgia last year, one of the best teams we've ever seen, was losing in the fourth quarter to Missouri,
Yeah.
who I don't even think won 6 games.
Georgia this year has struggled against Auburn, against
Yeah.
South Carolina for long periods. Yeah.
Yeah, so it happens, especially in conference games, especially letdown spots, whatever. I'm not concerned about last week, which means I think, if this game had been played last week and you saw that line, you'd go, only 26.5? They're going to beat Stanford by 40. So
Yeah.
I'm going to keep that energy, and
Okay.
I'm going to take Washington here.
Okay. Gotcha. Air Force, Colorado State.
My Falcons.
Mountain West clash here up in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yes.
Did not really know that that's where Colorado State was, but they are. Or I don't think maybe they aren't. I don't know. But Fort Collins.
That's where they are.
Yeah, Fort Collins, Colorado.
Or no,
You
that's
just see
where Air
Fort-
Force is. Air
Yeah.
Force is also a Colorado team.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But Colorado State is technically the home team, though.
Then I guess it's in...
It's maybe a
guess
neutral site in Colorado.
It must be where Colorado State plays. I got to be honest.
We're not the biggest West. We're over here on the
usually
East
pretty
Coast.
good with college football hometowns. I don't know either of these teams'
Yeah,
hometowns.
and the history of the show, I mean, I struggled so much with, we had a back and forth with Utah, where Provo, if it was BYU or Utah, we were ended up correctly leaning, okay, Provo is BYU, and then I even struggled with Salt Lake City, naming Salt Lake City for Utah again, just this show 10 minutes ago. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just on a string of liking some dogs here, but I think 12.5 is a little bit wonky for me. I kind of like Colorado State to, maybe lose by 10 or 11. I just don't know if I fully trust an Air Force essentially to win by 13 points against Colorado State.
As the resident Air Force guy on this, who I've brought up how much I like their offense so many times, this game scares the bejesus out of me.
Really?
I mean, we saw what Colorado State did
Against
to
the
Colorado, take them to the wire, and then they did it to, I forget who else, another team much better than them that they were big favorites. Colorado State almost took them to overtime, I believe. Maybe
Yes.
they did take them to overtime.
Yeah.
So,
Who was that?
all right, we're going to get the real-time stats and info here.
Yeah, real-time sports info solutions here.
Let's see. Who was it? It was
Maybe-
UNLV, who's 7-1 this year, and is a very good team. And with their one loss coming to Michigan, I mean, they might be the best non-Power 5 team in the country, and they were huge favorites over Colorado State, and Colorado State made it a 2-point game. And then, like I said, we all saw what they did to Colorado, one of the most watched games of the season. When they're big dogs, they make these games tough. Yeah, I think if you're betting this game, you got to go Colorado State.
Still like Air Force to, I mean, it would be quite a story, Air Force finishing here this season as
I would love for
bordering
them
top
to
15.
yeah.
I mean, easily could be in the top 15 and it's all said and done, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like you watch these Aflac trivias and, any game you're watching here, these trivia. Okay, dating back to 1894, Herman Van whatever for Air Force, one of the service
Yeah.
academies back when they were, I guess, winning it all,
Mhm.
like as one of, I guess, maybe 8 teams
Mhm.
competing, but still, it's cool to see back Air Force at least in really in the spotlight and limelight here. All right, Tennessee going to Lexington. Tennessee 3.5 point favorite here. Um, I don't know. I'm not really crazy about picking either way here.
You got to be the guy to pick this game because I'm the guy who's called both of these teams frauds already this year. So,
I mean, I guess I kind of just
what do you have
like
in Connor's
Tennessee.
fraud bowl?
I kind of just like Tennessee. I guess I just I Kentucky. I just have a worse view.
Mhm.
So
Weirdly, like my brain is going on this one. I'm like, well, Tennessee's definitely the better team, even though I think they're both
mhm.
fraudulent at 5-2.
Yeah,
I'm like, Tennessee's the better team, and then as soon as I think that, I go, man, but they stink though. and yeah,
they
so
came out for a first
yeah,
half against Alabama,
great first
but
half.
yeah, it's just a weird, not
Yeah.
not great feeling
Uh,
matchup.
I'll lay the points with Tennessee if you make me make a pick, but in real life, I will not be playing this game anyway.
Hmm. Hmm. Will you be playing though Ohio State, Wisconsin?
I will not, and the reason I will not is because
Okay.
I love Wisconsin so much in this game that they cannot win it. I they can't cover. Every time I see a game from like a couple weeks out, and I've seen this one coming on the schedules, I've gone, oh man, this is going to be the perfect spot. Ohio State's coming off Penn State, looking forward to Michigan, as they always do. This is like the perfect sleeper spot for a Wisconsin team that's not nearly as good as Ohio State,
Hmm.
but is really well coached. Luke Fickle loves to play and try to beat Ohio State. He
Sure.
believes that he should have been the coaching hire there. He didn't get it, and that's a real motivator. And man, that is a game that, like I said, I've seen it for developing for a couple weeks. I'm like, if these go, I was going, well, maybe if Wisconsin comes in 6-1, they will be on people's radar. They'll be ranked again. Nope, they lose to Iowa. Like it's all forming to this perfect peak that I've been like so excited about that now I love Wisconsin so much they will lose by 45.
I respect that. I respect that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I do like Ohio State. I'm a fan of them, but I it feels for me, yeah, a little weird trying to pick 14 and a half, them to cover that, well, two touchdowns, you know, north of two touchdowns again at Wisconsin in Madison in what's definitely a really home field advantage for Wisconsin.
Yes, it's a huge home
So,
field advantage.
which yeah, I get more just makes me less confident in Ohio State. So it may,
And what on Ohio State's offense, what is still the kind of looming question mark?
passing is Kyle McCord.
Is Kyle McCord the
Yeah,
guy?
yeah,
A lot of the way that he looked like the guy against Penn State was just throwing it to Maserati Marv.
yeah. Well, I think that's the
but
offense. How we can look good against
yeah,
anybody is throwing it up to Marvin. Yeah,
but Wisconsin has one of the best corners in the country. He's going to be following Marvin Harrison all day. I'm not saying he can stop Marvin Harrison. No
well,
one can. But if he can just make it more difficult, is that a path for Wisconsin to do something?
in that sense, I don't think so because we just saw one of the best, Kalen King, last week for Penn State, potential top 25 type pick. I mean, I just don't think you can.
But
It's like
correct me if
he's
I'm
in the
wrong. I don't
bubble.
believe he was following Marvin Harrison throughout the game.
I don't. Yeah, I guess he. No, maybe majority or
Hmm.
more often than not matched up against
Hmm.
him, but I just look. I don't think it matters, quite honestly, who in
Hmm.
college football. I don't think it matters mostly in the NFL, the next level, who might be covering Marvin Harrison, honestly. But yeah, it's just all signs pointing to Wisconsin to cover this, but it's like trying
Yeah.
not to jinx or trying not to it
Yeah.
almost makes too much sense in a way. Yeah. So it's like trying not to. It's like psyching yourself out almost, but trying not to jinx things. Trying not to. Yeah. I don't know. Just weird. You see what we're thinking, but we're
Yeah.
saying don't do it. I guess don't really do it.
Which maybe means do it because you should be
Well, based on
fading us.
based on our other records, yeah.
Well,
So
we're fading ourselves here. So then
it's a weird, it's
uh,
very weird.
yeah.
It's a weird one.
So I might just bet both sides of this game so that I know I win one way.
Yeah.
Just guarantee that I lose money, but just go, I had the right idea at some point.
Just try to find some books, a combination of the books where there's plus and plus in terms of the money, but and the lines that we're getting. But yeah, all right. Interesting little SEC clash of in Oxford. Ole Miss, 12th ranked team in the nation, but are they truly the 12th best team? That's another question. I think for me, maybe to some degree, we both, don't think the highest of Ole Miss in regards to the SEC hierarchy, in a way. Vanderbilt, I think, is maybe better than their record indicates in my book. 24 and a half is quite a lot for me. I guess I'm just kind of fading some teams that have huge, huge lines here this weekend. I kind of like Vanderbilt to cover the 24 and a half, honestly, if I had to lean one way. But yeah, I think, look, Ole Miss has the offensive firepower, though, and Kiffin can call plays.
Yeah, I think we kind of disagree on the way you set up the game. You said Ole Miss is ranked 12 in the country. Do we really think they're the 12th best team? I don't care if they're the 90th best team. They're better than Vanderbilt. I don't think Vanderbilt's better than their record. I think Vanderbilt's
Okay.
just bad.
Okay.
But also, I have maybe not been very high on Ole Miss because I don't think they fit their conference well. I don't think it plays to their strengths to play SEC football every week. I think if they were in the Big 12 or the Pac 12, where their insane offense could shine and they wouldn't have to be as tough on defense, they would probably be undefeated and top 10 in the country right now. So I am high on Ole Miss. I just don't love that they have to play SEC teams every week. I don't think that plays to their strengths. That being said, I don't think Vanderbilt's really like an SEC team. So I like Ole Miss here.
All right. I don't know. Maybe I going head to head in that match. Okay. Look, we're getting into one of my best bets now.
I figured it would be.
We're talking Colorado against UCLA here. And, man, UCLA making a quarterback change, which, yeah, Dante Moore.
That was bad last week, huh?
It's just, with him, I just hope it doesn't derail how the season's played out. It doesn't derail his long-term development. And Chip Kelly, it's so weird because every single game you hear the announcers make a point about, oh, Chip Kelly loves Dante Moore. Well, you brought out Garbers last week, and I guess partially that plays into maybe line confidence, bookmaker confidence here, obviously with a relatively tenured quarterback to have a 17-point line against Colorado.
Frankly, a shocking line to me.
Yeah.
I was very surprised by this line.
Which it's maybe very weird in a way, but I got to take lock it in 17 and a half, 7 plus 17. I'll take it. I don't care which on that half point line here. I could go up almost even, I feel like as comfortable as to say, a touchdown even. Give me 10, even if it's 10 points for UCLA. I like Colorado to cover that. Maybe even as far as, look, I have their win total prop. That's my big bet of this year. But I just think Colorado, look, they're a team that's kind of been on a little bit of a struggle bus for a little bit. They've seen the worst, you can't think of worse ways to lose or tougher, I guess, kind of trials and tribulations for a Colorado team this season. Or any, I guess, team otherwise in the country in terms of the narrative and how the perception's gone for Colorado these last couple of weeks, last month or so. I think it's just a perfect opportunity for them to come out. And look, they are going to play quite a defense, but I think they can cover. I think they can cover 17 relative with ease, knock on wood here. But how do you see this, Con?
I was with you all week. I thought this is a perfect spot for Colorado to bounce back. Dion's been riding these guys in practice.
Yeah.
They love to show up for the big moments, and it's a ranked UCLA team. It's going to be on national TV. It's going to be like a spot for them to really do something.
Mm-hmm.
But then I saw the line. The line confused me so much that I figure I'm missing something. I don't know what I'm missing, but I'm missing something.
Yeah.
And the people who set those lines are smarter than me. They know more than me. That line scared me off of this game entirely. If I do bet it, I'm probably going to come back on the other side and bet UCLA just because I can't figure out the line so much.
Mm-hmm. Look, I respect that. And I totally understand it. Going down here to a North Carolina Georgia clash here, Georgia Tech, more specifically, Calvin Johnson's alma mater. 11.5 point line for UNC to cover here in Atlanta. I'm not super confident in North Carolina to be able to do that, but I'm not so confident as to bet the line either way.
I think UNC bounces back.
Okay.
Georgia Tech's had a better season than their record indicates. Obviously, they beat Miami. That's a game we don't need to break down any further.
Mm-hmm.
But also, just this was a team that was picked dead last in the ACC by everybody who comments on the ACC going into the season. They weren't, they're only 3-4. They weren't even supposed to be 3-4. They sure weren't supposed to have two ACC wins right now. So it's a tougher test than I guess it would look on paper. That being said, UNC's the better team. They're the much better offense. They're coming off a hard loss, obviously. I think it's a natural bounce back. I think they score a lot of points this week.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's just Drake May and that team just kind of leaves a lot to be desired, I guess, in my view. But it's a perfect potential to respond on a national level here. Old Dominion against JMU, the Madison. I can't think of their mascot right now, but I should because
they're the Dukes.
Of course they are. Of course, but yeah, as good as a chance as probably anybody to finish, as we talked about, undefeated.
Yep.
In that Sun Belt. How do you see this one against Old Dominion?
Yeah, Old Dominion actually has a lot of talent on this team. They have not played up to their level of talent. I know they have some guys who have potential NFL futures. You don't see a lot of that in the Sun Belt. So, talent-wise, a little interesting in terms of how well both teams are playing, how well both teams seem to be coached, how well disciplined both teams seem to be. Everything points to James Madison. That's why they're a 20.5 point favorite. 20.5 feels like a lot. Maybe Old Dominion keeps it in the number. I don't know. I don't feel great on this game either way. I guess if I were gonna bet some, I'd just bet the hot team to ride with. Not ride with Old Dominion. Ride with James Madison.
Mm-hmm. And I know. They have been just a machine, and they have one of the. I think. Well, they have. It's funny because they're not recognized. Because it's a transitional year for bowl eligibility, which is just very odd. But
the reason they do that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's because they don't want a team that has say you win a great Division I AA national championship.
Yeah.
You're the best 1AA team in the country, or now FCS. But same thing. And you're bringing everyone back, so you're going to be good enough to compete at the next level next year. They don't want you coming up to compete for 1 year and then going right back down when you don't have the guys. The problem is, why not just punish them when they go back down? Why do you punish them when they come up? Give them a bowl ban when they come up.
Yeah. No, yeah,
it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah, so,
they're not eligible to play in a bowl, so they will just play 12 games this year.
Yeah. And it's just weird because I know it's some implication when I say with not officially even recognized, I think, for some defensive categories where they've been leading, I think as far as the rush defense goes. But, yeah.
Also, their undefeated record, should they maintain it, will not go down into NCAA history books of undefeated teams, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
so they played the games.
Yeah, so the teams then that played, I don't know. It's very odd.
Yeah.
odd for sure. But yeah, I guess not really too eager to kind of bet on this one, to say
Mhm.
the least. But one where I am to round out the top 25
Mhm.
here, Oregon State, Arizona, your Wildcats, Con. That's
Not my
look.
Wildcats anymore. They got me my 4 wins. That's all I needed.
Oh, okay, okay. Well,
Cash that
that's
ticket. I don't care what happens the rest of the season.
sure. Okay, man. Four. That was it. You just needed four. That's
3.5
crazy.
was the over under.
And meanwhile, I am struggling here with my Colorado Buffs.
Mhm.
The last four games here, this or I guess five, or they already, however many games we got left here, four or whatever it is. Um, look, Arizona at home. Oregon State's only a 3-point favorite.
Arizona might be the better team in this game, which sounds crazy to say with how well Oregon State's been playing, but Arizona's been on fire.
They have, they really have, and it's tough to pick against what they've got going. I mean, it really is, and they. So I'm not picking against them. I'm not necessarily the line on this one,
Okay.
but I like Arizona at home to score some points. And for this, it all it entails is to go over 27.5 for Arizona, which I
For the
really
team total
like.
over,
Yep.
I'm adding it to my card. I
I
put it on
yeah,
the books. I'm doing that as well.
book it. Yeah, we like look, Arizona, Jed Fish, Fafita, they got some guys.
Yeah.
Towing. They got some guys, man.
Yeah. This is gonna be a fun one to watch. A
Mm-hmm.
little Pac-12 after dark action, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like that it's I guess not a standalone game, but it's a standalone game in the top 25, and
Yeah, yeah. For
yeah,
in our hearts, it kind of is. but but yeah. So you, I guess, yeah. Don't. I mean, you're not like betting Oregon State. I mean, you like Arizona here.
yeah, I think I'll probably take Arizona in this game too, but
Okay.
I love that team total over. That's a great bet.
Yeah.
Until it misses by a bunch.
Yeah. Well, the irony as we, I guess, now just transition. We've gotten through the top 25.
Mhm.
Unless Con, you have, I guess, another notable matchup
Uh,
or
I think I have three worth mentioning.
okay,
One
yeah,
of them is actually good.
potential gut off because we got
Potentially.
to find a gut off, man. We got to find a gut off here.
Uh-huh. So I'm just gonna pull up the
Okay.
lines here. The one I know off the top of my head is a 5.5 point line. It's your Washington State Cougs taking on.
Oh, they'll be brought up either way for one of
Okay.
my best bets. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, taking on Arizona State. I just think that I think it's worth mentioning from a gambling perspective. I think there's a lot of interesting storylines here. The way that Arizona State's been scoring the ball and been kind of putting teams on the ropes, even though they only have one win.
And even though it was just 7 against Washington last
Yeah.
week, but
And the
still,
way that Washington State has been, they were at the top of the table and now they've completely fallen off. But if you're going to have a best bet on it, that's fine because I only wanted to bring it up for gambling perspectives. It's not a good matchup by any means outside of that. Also, worth noting, I think potential upset spot maybe. Miami's a 19-point favorite over Virginia, and Miami. I mean, I guess both are coming off big wins, so they could both settle down here. But I think Virginia is more going in this trajectory. They feel like they have something working. 19 feels like a lot. I'm a Miami fan, so I'm always paying attention to their lines and stuff.
hmm
I think
hmm
that's worth noting. And then the final one is the best non-top 25 matchup out there. I just feel like we have to talk about it, and
okay.
that's Fresno State UNLV. They're both 6-1. They're both having really good seasons. As I mentioned, UNLV's only loss this year is to Michigan, who was stealing their signs.
hmm
And Fresno State's only loss is that Wyoming game that we talked about, where Fresno State was ranked in the top 25 and played a really good team and just didn't win, but doesn't make them a bad team. So I think these are two really good teams. It's an 8-point line at
Hmm.
home for Fresno State. They're the favorites. It's what do you think about
Okay. Well, I was thinking potential gut off until we saw 8-point line
it?
there, but yeah, I guess I was with everything you just said. Yeah, I guess I kind of respect Fresno State maybe a little bit more, but eight to the degree of 8 points. I don't know. That's tough. That's kind of tough. It does feel like the maybe makings of a one possession, one score game, which I guess technically could still be 8 points, but that would just be pushing, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the reason I like UNLV here, not maybe not to win, but to cover the 8, is other than last week against Colorado State, which we talked about was a 23-25 win for them. They've scored 35 or more in every game. I think they've scored 40 or more in every game except for 2. They're scoring so many points. It's tough to beat a team that scores that much by 8. If they put up 45 points on you, now you got to score in the 50s to, and in the high 50s to get that done. So
Sure. Yeah, just pretty, yeah, under the radar, but worthwhile and noteworthy matchup, to say the least.
yeah,
Which there were due respect out there out west. It's really interesting to see. Maybe they get potential Pac-2 merge in type with. I mean, that would really make it an intriguing group there.
it would.
Potential
I think
Oregon
basically
State,
what'll happen
Washington
is the Mountain
State.
West will just become the Pac-12, but they'll keep the Pac-12 branding because it's the bigger name and all that. But
Okay.
um,
Because I heard almost Pac-2 type saying
yeah,
you're saying the branding of that.
yeah.
Yeah. Which okay, that could make some sense.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. I think that branding is so valuable, they will keep it alive at whatever
Whatever
cost.
at all costs. Yeah, that makes sense.
Even though it won't feel like the Pac-12, certainly with no matter who joins the conference.
Yeah, still the conference of champions with all the championships that are going to be
Yeah,
gone.
the
But
real question there is Bill Walton going to start calling the Big Ten the Conference of Champions?
yeah, man, that guy, what a guy. But
But anyway, let's get into our best bets and get out of here, huh?
yep, and then I think we still owe the people in search of a gut off game here, but
I think a
well,
gut off's got to be natural. If we don't have opposing gut
fair
feelings
enough.
about anything,
Fair enough.
you know,
We can't force it.
Yep.
You know what? Fair enough, Con. Fair enough. I respect that. So, okay, I think I've pretty much gotten at, I guess, well, two of mine. So I'll just kind of wrap mine up and introduce mine here. Look, so over the team total for Arizona, the 27.5 that we just talked about a couple minutes ago, as well as out west in the pack still, regardless of if that might be a 12 right now, maybe it's a 2 temporarily after after the season and then becomes back at 12. Whoever knows how many potential teams are going to be in that conference. I have to go with the Colorado 7 lane, getting 17 there. I like them to cover that. And then in keeping with the theme of Pac-12 and teams that are in Arizona, I gotta go, and you kind of brought them up, but obviously they're going to become a focal point here. And the best bets, look, I gotta go with the Washington State Cougars to be over the team total 28.5. I just like Cam Ward at minimum to just put up some points.
stole it right off my plate.
Really.
It's the reason I brought up that game.
Well, that is something to note, folks. We are in sync for that, so that might
Yep.
be absolutely fade at all costs.
Yeah.
Honestly, that might be a double down fade at all costs. But okay, do you have
I got backups. Don't worry.
backups? Okay, then yeah, okay. So yeah, those are my best bets here on the Pac-12. We got 2 team total overs, which, look, we're talking the neighborhood. I know you were aggressive with the Oregon over 41, which they could have very well gotten against Washington State last week. And I figured, why not? Look, we already gave you one wrong, one team total over in the pack that didn't hit. Why not go back to the well, right? What's not working? And that's so intuitive, right? But nope. So yeah,
All right. I got my best bets here. I got Nebraska giving 2.5 to Purdue. Feels like everything's starting to click for Nebraska. They're
Okay.
putting it together. Matt Rule, this is what he came in to do. It's kind of what he's done at the other 2 programs he's taken over. Start a little slow, but you start nurturing the culture, getting things going in the right direction.
Sure.
And it feels like that's happening for Nebraska. It feels like they're firing on all cylinders. Maybe still a little bit of sketchy quarterback play, but overall, the team as a whole feels like they're playing pretty well. I think Purdue's kind of a dead program right now, so I don't feel too scared of them. I like that Nebraska giving 2.5 to Purdue.
Okay.
Okay. Then I've got game we talked about recently. Give me UNC giving 11.5 to Georgia Tech. Like I said, I just think that offense is going to come out firing. They're going to come out angry. I don't think Georgia Tech can score with them or can stop them really. So I expect. I mean, maybe it should have been a team total over bet. I expect North Carolina to score a lot of points.
Okay.
I'm taking them, given the 11.5. And could you pull up and give me the exact line on the Washington game?
For Washington, we are talking 26.5 according to
Yep.
ESPN.
Yep, and that is where I will go. I will go Washington laying 26.5, coming off the clunker, get
Got it.
back on track.
Got it. I mean, you had said as much when we were covering it.
Yep.
Yeah, you see, not letting, I guess, 1 week prior really,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, kind of operate as a blinder in
Yep.
terms of what you had thought as a potential, Washington's capable of a near 40 point almost cover
Yep.
in this type of matchup. But okay. So I think there you guys have it with our best bets and just covering this interesting week 9 slate. I think there's going to be some things to learn, as always, take away from each week, which we will indicate as much likely on our next show what we took away from this past, soon to be past week 9.
Mhm.
Yeah, Con, any last words? Anything else to say?
Yeah, he's Connor Stallions. I'm a private investigation firm, and that's the
Uh,
episode.
I